Hello students, we are doing lesson number 6, the Mughal Empire, and we have already done up to expansion of empire. So today we will start with the Akbar's administration. So let us start with this. Akbar was not only a great empire building means he increased the land portion in his empire. Moreover, he managed that empire well, but also a great administrator means he was a great empire building as well as he was having the capability to run that empire's administration properly. His administration saw the mixture of the Indian system and some ideas which the Mongols borrowed from Central Asia and Persia. It means the rule regulation to run the administration. He adopted mixture of the system that was already there in India, as well as some he borrowed from the Central Asia and Persia, because their ancestors were from Central Asia, so they were having a kind of a relation and a kind of a customs they were having that are related to Central Asia and Persia. So he used both Indian as well as Central Asian and Persian style to run the administration. Then Akbar had an excellent administration. Its main features are discussed below. So here we are going to discuss the features of Akbar's administration. First is we will talk about the central administration. So when we are talking about central administration, we are talking about the rule regulation or the administration of the entire empire or the country. All the powers of the empire were centralized and headed by the king. It means king was the center and all the powers were in his hand, and later on we will discuss how he distribute those powers between other departments. And he had a council of ministers to help him. Number of ministers he was having. Panchayat system was duly recognized and it looked after the village affairs. It means in that time also Panchayat system was there. Second is the Mansabdari system. So what is Mansabdari system? We will get the meaning from the word of this Mansab. Mansab means office or rank of dignity. Means like in modern time we are having different ranks or offices where different officials are appointed. So that kind of offices or official authority or rank is known as Mansab. It means under Akbar's administration, many Mansabdars were appointed by Akbar. And in this system, every office or a noble was called a Mansabdar. He was given a Mansab or a rank. So these Mansabs, those were appointed by Akbar, they were provided with the Mansabs. Not only the rank, even lots of Jagirs, means properties, they were having or provided by the ruler or Akbar. The Mughal Mansabdars were the highest paid officer. It means maximum income they were having. They were given handsome Jagirs. Jagirs means properties for their personal expenditure, for their own personal use, and to maintain the required number of horses, elephants, camels, carts, etc. As in case of need, these Mansabdars have to help the ruler during the time of any war, any other trouble. They have to help the ruler or the, when we are talking about particular Akbar, so to Akbar, to provide that kind of help, it was must for them to maintain number of horses, elephants, camel, carts, etc. So from their mansab means from their jagirs, they were using that money for their personal use as well as to maintain these kind of horses, elephant, camel, carts, etc., that kind of things. So question is there, why that kind of jaggies were provided to these mansabdar? The main reason was this only, as they have to maintain the required number of horses, elephant, camels, etc., so that they can provide help or they can assist the ruler in case of some emergency requirement or some kind of war. That's why they were provided that kind of jaggies. Okay, so next is the rank of Mansabdar was not hereditary. Hereditary means when the thing from parent we are getting. But this was not hereditary. It means if one Mansabdar is appointed, it doesn't mean after that Mansabdar his son will be a next Mansabdar. No, because it was not hereditary. And the rank was held by the officer only during his lifetime. So till that Mansabdar is alive, that rank will be with him. After his death, his children will they means he were not able to continue with that office, Mansabdari office. Second one is army. So army, apart of from this, means we are talking about Mansabdars. So apart from this, Akbar maintained a regular standing army of his own, which was directly under his control. So he was also having huge or number of soldiers, and that was under his direct control, and it was a highly trusted army directly recruited by him. So only we are having this example that one particular ruler was appointing his soldiers directly. So Akbar was appointing his soldiers directly, and all the soldiers were trustful, means only trustworthy persons were appointed by him in his army. And the emperor also had a well-trained artillery and a stable of war elephant, means big guns they were having, and stable means where they kept their animals, so that is war elephant, those elephants those who can help or those who were used during the time of wars. Then the cavalry was the main constituent of the Mughal army. So in Mughal's army, cavalry was also there. So when we are modern time, we are talking about the army, we are having a navy, air force, then army, then we are having different kind of armaments. So according to that, these things are different means categorized. So what type of armaments they were having, according to that name is given. The troops were mostly, troop mean number, group of soldiers, so were mostly provided by the Mansabdar. However, the naval force under Akbar remained in its infancy. So naval force, actually it was in the early age only, not well developed. Still Akbar was having the naval force, like navy we are calling. So naval force he was having, and it was under his control, and rest of the troops, group of soldiers, they were provided by the Mansabdars. It means maintained by the Mansabdars with their horses, elephant, camels, carts, etc. Otherwise the soldiers were appointed by Akbar itself. Then is the officials. Officials, like we are having different kind of offices to run the administration, same it was during the time of Akbar. The emperor ruled with the help of officials headed by the emperor himself. So emperor was the head of all the officers. The Wazir and the Mir Bakshi were the two most important officials. So who were the most important officials? One was Wazir and second one was Mir Bakshi. And the Wazir was the head of the revenue system. This paragraph is very important. Many questions could be there. So who was the head of revenue system? Wazir. And the Mir Bakshi. So here we talk about Mir Bakshi also. Mir Bakshi was the paymaster of the army. So who was the paymaster of army? That is Mir Bakshi. And who was the head of revenue system? That is the Wazir. Then here we are talking about Mir Bakshi. He looked after the army organization. The emperor used to hold meetings with his senior officials in Diwan-e-Khas. So here we are talking about the different officers, and that particular officers, or we can say with the important officers, emperor used to held meetings, and where? In the Diwan-e-Khas. So that Diwan-e-Khas was particular kind of building where important meetings or the meetings with royal persons were took place. He was also easily available to his people, so common person can also approach him. Daily he would appear at the balcony of his palace and give his glimpse in what was known as Charokha Darshan. So glimpse means darshan only to the people. It means he was approachable. A common person also can approach him, and where he was giving his glimpse, darshans, through the balcony of his palace. But if someone wanted to meet him, then there was a Diwan-e-Aam. So he would meet his people in Diwan-e-Aam of his palace, where he would listen to their petitions. So whatever they are having, kind of grievances, kind of complaints, everything, those common persons can tell to ruler, emperor in the Diwan-e-Aam. Then is his provincial administration. So up to this we have done central administration. Under that Mansabdari system, army and other officials we have done. Now the provincial administration. The whole empire was divided into 15 subas or provinces. So how they run the administration of his empire? For that empire was divided into subparts. Those subparts were known as provinces. Like we are having states, number were 15, and the Suba was further subdivided into number of sarkars. Like our states are further divided into districts, so there were also, and that was divided into number of sarkars, and each of these was further divided into number of parganas. Like our districts are divided into simply we can say like our own area is having blocks, so further divided into blocks. So similarly it was there, and that was known as parganas. And when we are talking about parganas, a group of villages made one pargana. Like a group of villages is making one block, same is there, only the difference of names are here. And the pattern of administration at capital was applied to the Suba also. The same pattern was applied to Subas. Subas means provinces or sub-states. And the governor of the province, the Subedar. So the governor of the province was known as Subedar and was the most important person in the province. Like in the center, emperor was, and in his Subas, Subedars were there. And the Kotwal was in charge of the town administration. Like we are having a police officers, and there are different means officers are there. Similarly it was there, and the duty of the Kotwal was to maintain law and order, inspect weights, means when we are talking about markets, and mayors used by the merchants, and to keep a register of all the persons living in the town and its neighborhood, including visiting foreigners also. So his duty means Kotwal's duty was to maintain law and order and to keep a check on the merchants whether they are using proper weights or not, and they have to keep all the things, means they have to maintain the register for the persons, those who were living in the town and those who were living in the nearby towns, and even the foreigners, those who were visiting over there. So each and every record they have to maintain in their registers. Then is the revenue system. Land was the main source of income of the state because the state officers, mansabdars, were paid their salaries in grant of jagirs. It means form of salary was jagirs. So they were provided properties, and it was necessary to know how much revenue a particular jagirdar would collect and how much each the out to provide. So as a revenue, land revenue was the main source of income, and as the jagirs were provided to jagirdars, and it was must to know how much money, means how much revenue they are getting from their jagirs, from the peasants, from the farmers, and from that total amount how much they are depositing in the emperor's treasury. So this was must, and this information made it simple for the emperor to grant a jagir. So everything was managed according to proper system, and the Raja Todarmal was in charge of land revenue and land assessments. So from here question could be there, the who was the in charge of land revenue, that was Raja Todarmal. This is the name of person, not the name of a office. Okay, so Raja Todarmal was the in charge of land revenue and land assessment, and he was there to check what type of land is there, how much revenue could be collected, and whether those jagirdars are submitting the revenue properly or not. Everything was under the control of Raja Todarmal. And here on last page we have done, when we were talking about the officers, then Wazir was the head of the revenue system. So that Wazir was the head of revenue system, and Raja Todarmal was the in charge of land revenue, means the main person under him that kind of land revenue, land assessment system was. So both are different, don't be confused. When in charge was asked, then Raja Todarmal. Okay, then income from trade. So first was the revenue system, or the source of income was revenue, land revenue. Second, they were getting income from trade also. Revenue from trade was not so large. The main was land revenue, but it doesn't mean that maximum income they can get, but the major portion was from land revenue only. And the second is trade. We cannot say that they were not getting any income. They were getting income from trade, but it was not as much as they were getting from land revenue. Then Gujarat, Bengal were the two important centers of foreign trade. Which were the two important centers for trade? Question could be there. Then Gujarat and Bengal. And India carried on trade with Central Asia, Persia and Russia. So these are the with which foreign countries trade were going on, then this name you can write. And she exported textile, indigo, the items of export. Question could be there, then answer from here. The item of export was textile, indigo, saltpeter and spices. So these names you have to mention. Then there is a question time for oral, and from here question could be there in your paper also. So what is who succeeded Humayun? So who succeeded Humayun? Akbar. Who was the guardian of Akbar? In the beginning we have done that Bairam Khan. What is significant of Buland Darwaza? This we have to yet done, still I will tell you. So that Buland Darwaza was constructed to commemorate Akbar's victory over Gujarat. Then who was the official head of revenue system? As I told you here also, no? The official head of revenue system was Wazir. Okay. Then who was in charge of land revenue? So in charge was Raja Todarmal. Here I told you. Okay, now literature, education and fine arts. So this time this is not in our syllabus, but just go through this so that if any question will there in your paper, you can answer that. Okay, only name of books are there. From here, Abul Fazl wrote Akbarnama. So who wrote Akbarnama? Then you will write on Abul Fazl. Okay, so what is there in this Akbarnama? This is the life story of Akbar. Okay, so a part of this book, Aine Akbari, that deals with law and revenue system of Akbar. And Akbar got the Ramayana and Mahabharata translated from Sanskrit to Persia. And Abul Fazl rose the preface of Persian translations. Preface like a index. Okay, so only main thing you have to revise from this paragraph: names, who wrote, what wrote. Okay, from here also, not in detail. Then is the architecture. Akbar built a new capital city at Fatehpur Sikri near Agra. So what is the name of new capital city built by Akbar? That was place was Fatehpur Sikri, that is near to Agra. So name is Fatehpur Sikri near Agra. Then he selected this site as Sufi Saint Salim Chishti lived there and Akbar had high respect for him. So on the name of Sufi Saint Salim Chishti, he selected this place because he was living here. And the city is surrounded by a wall on 3 sides and by an artificial lake on the 4th side. It means protection was given from 4 sides. And the main architectural feature of Fatehpur Sikri are: number 1, in the construction of city, he deliberately blended Muslim and Hindu elements. So both elements were chosen. And in many buildings, Islamic type of arches appear alongside Hindu pillars. So in many buildings, both things are there, arches as well as Hindu styles pillars also there. And the material used is red sandstone with the insertion of white marble. So which things were used? Red sandstone and marble. Main was red sandstone, and further to elaborate the things, white marble was also used. Then most of the buildings have mixture of 2 styles of architecture, that is the Indian and the Persian. From beginning we are discussing same, that he used both styles. So this was a mixture of Indian and the Persian style of architect. The architecture of Akbar's region was influenced by Indian, Persian and Central Asian style. His buildings at Agra and Fatehpur Sikri are made from red sandstone. Fatehpur Sikri was a new capital of Akbar. Now the following are worth mentioning buildings of Fatehpur Sikri. So very important, this is name the important place at the Fatehpur Sikri. Then your answer will be Diwan-e Khas and the Diwan-e-Am. Second is the Panch Mahal, then Jodhabai Palace, then Jama Masjid, Buland Darwaza, the tomb of Sheikh Salim. And the Buland Darwaza that I just told you on previous page, the question was there. So the Buland Darwaza was added to commemorate Akbar's victory over Gujarat. And it is the highest gateway of India and one of the biggest in the world. So highest in India it is, and among the biggest one in the world this Buland Darwaza is. And the mausoleum over the tomb of Salim Chishti is made of marble and has beautiful pearl and ebony inlay work on it. For the decoration purpose of this they used. Then people from all over the world visit the tomb, which has a lot of marble legends. It means to decorate, lots of marble is used, and many people are coming from the world to see the beauty of this. So this is really very beautiful. And another example of architecture of this time is Humayun's tomb, which has been built at New Delhi. It was built on a raised platform and has many domes and arches. It has been enclosed in a garden and has a big gateway. So this is Humayun's tomb, constructed on high platform. Its base is very high, over that it is constructed, and it is having domes like here. Domes are there, and it is beautifully means decorated, and this huge garden is also there. And this is common to most Mughal tombs. So that big gateway is there, and this is common, means this style is common for the architect of the Mughal period. And the plan of Akbar's tomb at Sikandra was finalized by Akbar himself. So by his own tomb, he just made a plan himself. And the tomb has no dome, and his tomb is not having any dome. Then his religious policy. Akbar was an enlightened emperor. Very intellectual he was. He was having the knowledge of everything. He was very aware, and he had liberal view on religion. He believed in the basic unity of all the religions and respected all the religions. Means all the religions were equal for him, and he didn't discriminate between any religion. And he married Rajput princes and allowed them to practice their own religion and customs at his place. So from here we can judge what type of religious policy he was having, as he married with Rajput princes, but he never forced them to change their religion or to practice Mughal religion. So they were used their own customs at his palace. So they still continue with the Hindu religion and Hindu worship. Then in 1575 AD, Akbar built Ibadat Khana at Fatehpur Sikri. Ibadat Khana means hall for prayer. And this Fatehpur Sikri was his new capital. And this was the place where the emperor invited religious scholars and teachers for discussion on religious subjects. So this was the place where he was inviting scholars related to different religions and the teachers, so that they can discuss over the topics of religion. Hindu, Jain, Parsi, and even Christian scholars were invited. It means all were equally important for him, and all were invited in this type of discussions by Akbar. Akbar felt that all religions pointed towards one God, means they all are telling us about one God only. It means when God is one, it means all religions are same. And he wondered why it was not possible for people to follow different religions to live in peace with each other. So he was wondered that why it is not possible, why people are not following different religions with peace, why the persons belonging to different religions are not able to live peacefully with each other. And after all the discussions, Akbar found the way out. So after all that, he got one solution. So he suggested a new religious path. So this is very important. What new religious path he adopted? So that was, it was based on a common truths and rules taken from all the religions. So after the discussions, they came to a conclusion that they will get all the good things, all the truths, all the beliefs, all the rules from different religions. Then from those particular that were common or that were good, he made one new religion. Akbar's religious path was named, and so that new religion, actually that was not religion, so that was a path, that was a path to live peacefully, to achieve the god. So that was name was given in 1582 AD, and that name was Deen Ilahi. So this was the new religion, that is the religion of one god. It was not a new religion, as I told you, it was a path, so that the all means the persons belonging to all the religions can live peacefully, and so that they can avoid that kind of differences in their particular religion, so they can follow Deen Ilahi, that is the religion of God only, and all the good things from the different religions they adopted in this. It was like a Sufi order. Akbar Sufi order means Sufis were those persons who were the followers of God, those who wore black clothes made from Suf, and this Deen Ilahi was based upon their Sufi order, because these Sufis, they believed in oneness of God. They didn't believe in differences in religion or any particular uh, religious sacrifices or any other kind of particular thing that will related to one religion only. So he adopted this Sufi order, and Akbar did not force the people to join or accept Deen Ilahi. Even his own ministers, Raja Man Singh, refused to join it. It means how tolerant he was, that even his own minister, Raja Man Singh, he refused to join it, and emperor was agree with him, and he disapproved of all openly. So Raja Man Singh openly refused that he will not adopt this new religion, and Raja Birbal, however, sincerely followed it. So Raja Birbal, he was agree with the Deen Ilahi. Then, under Deen Ilahi, Akbar became spiritual guide of his people. He discouraged the killing of the animals. So, and under this new religious order, that was Deen Ilahi, few rules were there that were positive only. So, under that, he discouraged the killing of animals, and he advised the people should stop eating meat at least for a few days in a year. So at least they can give up eating meat for a few days, so that animals could be saved, especially during the month of their birth, at least when means the particular month when they born. He himself gave up eating meat. Akbar disapproved of cruel punishments such as mutilation of limbs of the criminals. So earlier, punishments were very harsh for the criminals. They used to cut down their body parts. So they now started to stop that kind of cruel punishments. And he also disapproved of Hindu women performing sati. Sati means when woman's husband was died, and he used to burn with the dead body of his husband. So that was known as sati, and he disapproved that sati system. Akbar introduced the worship of the sun, the fire, and the light of his rituals. So also he introduced the worship. So this type of worship was there in Hindu religion. It means whether he was a Muslim, but he started to follow many things that were related to Hindu religion, and many things that were not good for the society, whether it was belonging to Hindu religion or their own Muslim religion. He just disapproved those particular things. It means he was really very intellectual emperor, enlightened one, and very uh, means religious tolerance was there in his heart. And now an estimate of Akbar is given here. Akbar died in 1605 AD after ruling India for 50 years. So his time period is near about 50 years. He ruled over India, and his region was a glorious period in the history of medieval India. Akbar ranks with Ashoka the Great as one of the greatest kings in the history of the world. So really he was great king and compared with Ashoka the Great. Throughout his region, Akbar followed a policy of religious tolerance. He is also remembered for centralized administrative system. It means his religious policy, his administration, means he is remembered for his these type of great deeds. Though himself an illiterate man, he was not literate one. He was illiterate. He don't know write and reading. Means writing and reading he was not able. And Akbar had a passionate interest in books. Still, he was having interest in books. For that, he was having books with the pictures. So the stories were introduced with the help of pictures. That type of books were introduced, and moreover, whether he was not capable to read and write, he was having many scholars to discuss over the matter of books, and he was fond of knowledge. So with this we can say really Akbar was a great emperor of India, means the great Mughal emperor of India. With this our chapter is over here. Just watch this video, try to understand the topics. If any doubt is there, you can message me. Goodbye.